My name is Brian. I've been married to the same woman for nearly 20 years, or at least, I thought I was married to her. I work out of town, travel a lot, but I always made it home for the big moments. Until one ordinary afternoon, I came home early, and what I saw through that bedroom window shattered everything I believed in. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about what happens when the truth crashes into your life like a wrecking ball, and you're forced to decide, will you break with it or rise from it? We had planned a 2-week road trip starting the next morning. It was meant to be a reset, a way to reconnect after a long, chaotic summer spent juggling family gatherings, cookouts, and never-ending work responsibilities. I thought we were doing okay. I thought we just needed time. Alone time. Just the two of us. But fate, or maybe something darker, intervened. Work at the site had wrapped up early. Nothing big, just a few logistical changes that made my trip home make more sense on paper than staying another night in a cheap motel. I didn't even call Lisa to tell her I was coming. I figured it would be a nice surprise. We'd always loved surprises. I remember every second of that drive. The late afternoon sun was still warm, streaking orange through the windshield. I was even smiling a little, thinking about how Lisa would react when I walked through the door earlier than expected. Maybe she'd jump into my arms. Maybe we'd open a bottle of wine and start the trip a day early. But that smile started to fade the moment I turned the corner onto our street. There was a truck parked in our driveway. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Lisa's. And it definitely wasn't any vehicle I recognized. For a split second, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a delivery? A neighbor stopping by? The truck was unfamiliar, but our neighbor, Tom, had just recently joked about how he liked our new ride. I had brushed it off, thinking he must have been mistaken. But now, staring at the polished chrome grille and oversized tires sitting arrogantly in front of my house, that same comment hit me like a punch to the gut. Something was wrong. I didn't pull into the driveway. Instead, I parked down the block and walked back quietly, staying close to the hedge line. My heartbeat was rising, thudding like a war drum in my chest. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I also couldn't ignore the pit in my stomach. Something primal, something instinctual was screaming at me. I crept around the side of the house like a burglar in my own life. The back gate creaked, but I moved slow. I didn't want to be seen. I needed to know. Our bedroom window was slightly open, the curtains swaying gently with the breeze. I approached with a sick kind of dread, my mind already filling in the blanks, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Through the gap, I saw Lisa, naked, straddling a man whose face I didn't recognize, whose hands were all over her body. Our bed, my bed, sheets I had folded just days ago, pillows that still carried the scent of her shampoo, smashed beneath them as they moved, moaned, laughed. I remember my hands shaking, not fists, yet, but trembling like they didn't belong to me. My breath caught in my throat. I was frozen. 1,000 thoughts hit me at once, each one colder and meaner than the last. But the loudest was simple. This can't be real. But it was. I turned away before I did something I couldn't take back. My vision blurred from rage, from humiliation. I don't remember walking back to the car. I only remember the burning heat crawling up my neck, the taste of metal in my mouth, and the overwhelming desire to destroy something. Instead, I drove. I didn't go home. Not to that house. Not to her. I kept driving until my knuckles were white on the steering wheel and my mind started to spiral. Every mile away from that driveway felt like a mile away from my old life, from the man I thought I was. Eventually, I ended up at our family cabin, 2 hours away. It's where we used to go on weekends before life got too busy, too full of errands and responsibilities. I hadn't been there in months. I unlocked the door with the spare key and stepped into silence. There, I drank everything I could find. A bottle of rum I'd left last Christmas. A half bottle of bourbon tucked behind a cabinet. Anything to drown the memory of Lisa and that stranger. I wanted to numb the images, the betrayal, the sound of her laugh while she was tangled with someone else. My body felt hollow, but my mind was on fire. I stared at the rum bottle for over an hour before I let myself break. I didn't cry. Not then. I wish I had. Instead, I sat in the dark, gritting my teeth, fists clenched, breath shallow. The anger was growing inside me like a wildfire. I knew if I went back there, if I confronted her in that moment, I might say or do something that would change my life forever. And not in the way I had hoped when I started that drive. So I waited. I knew this was a turning point, a moment where everything shifts. I was at the edge of something deep and dangerous, and I didn't know yet if I would fall or jump. But one thing was already clear. The woman I came home to surprise wasn't the same woman I had married. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat on the old couch in the cabin's living room, staring into the fireplace that hadn't seen flames in over a year. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Every time I blinked, I could hear her laugh. That laugh. God, it twisted something inside me. By sunrise, the room was gone. So was any trace of the man I used to be. I checked my phone once, just once. 3 missed calls from Lisa. 1 text. Hey babe, just checking in. Love you. Sent at 10:43 p.m. Probably while she was lying next to him in our bed, using the same fingers she used to run through my hair to type that lie. I threw the phone across the room. It didn't break. I kind of wish it had. The silence of the cabin became unbearable. Every creak in the wooden walls echoed like screams. I needed to do something. Anything to stop myself from spiraling further. I considered driving back home, barging in, throwing his clothes out the window, demanding answers, maybe even worse. The anger was alive now, beating in my chest like a second heart. But I didn't. I couldn't. I've never been a violent man, but I'm honest enough to admit I was close. Far too close. That's what scared me the most. Not what she did. Not even what I saw. But what I knew I was capable of if I let myself go back too soon. So I stayed. I spent most of that day pacing the floors, opening and closing cabinets for no reason, staring out at the lake, sometimes crying, sometimes shaking. My emotions weren't coming in waves. They were crashing over me all at once. Anger, sadness, shame, fear, and something worse than all of them, helplessness. I had no control. Over her, over the situation, over myself. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the kitchen, reorganized a shelf, started a fire, and then let it burn out. But none of it mattered. My thoughts always circled back to them. Eventually, I sat down again and grabbed my phone. I opened Reddit and began typing, not because I needed advice, not at first. I just needed to get the poison out of my system. I didn't use names or details, just a raw, open scream into the void. Something like, I caught my wife cheating. I don't know what to do. I'm not okay. I hit post and closed the app. I didn't expect anything. But an hour later, I reopened it out of habit, and there were already dozens of responses. By the end of the night, there were hundreds. By morning, thousands. Private messages, comments, stories, support. Strangers telling me they had been through it, that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't alone. I don't know why, but that's when the first real crack in my armor formed. I cried, not out of rage, not out of pain, just out of sheer, broken relief. That maybe, just maybe, I could survive this. The messages kept pouring in. People told me to stay calm, to protect myself legally, to gather evidence if I could, to avoid emotional decisions. Some told me to forgive. Others said I'd be a fool if I did. But one comment stood out among the chaos. It read, "This isn't the end of your story. It's the start of a new one. What kind of man do you want to be on the first page?" I read it 10 times. I didn't know the answer yet, but I wanted to find out. So I started thinking clearly for the first time since it happened. I wasn't ready to talk to Lisa. I wasn't ready to hear her voice, her lies, her excuses. But I needed to start planning, protecting myself, reclaiming some kind of power. I remembered the upcoming trip, the vineyard bed and breakfast I had booked for the weekend. It was supposed to be our romantic getaway. Funny how life twists things. I opened the hotel's website and called them. I asked if I could change the names on the reservation and if we could switch the honeymoon suite to a standard room with 2 beds. The woman on the phone was kind. She didn't ask questions. Then I texted my brother Mark. Got plans this weekend? Want to go fishing? He didn't ask why. He just said, I'll bring the cooler. I felt lighter already. I needed that trip. Not for revenge. Not for escape. But to clear my head and remind myself that I wasn't just a victim in this story. I still had a say in how it ends. The next morning, Lisa texted again. Something about how excited she was for our weekend, how much she missed me already. She even sent a photo of a dress she was planning to wear. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, Hey, work emergency. I'm being sent to a remote site last minute. Can't call, bad reception. We'll rebook everything. Take care. Her response? No worries, Maybe I'll just go with my best friend instead. Yeah, right. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat on the cabin porch that night with a drink in hand, watching the sun dip below the lake. I didn't know where things would go from here, but I did know this. Lisa didn't get to write the next chapter. I did. Mark showed up early Saturday morning, just as I finished packing the last of our gear into the back of my truck. He didn't ask questions, didn't press for answers. He just gave me a long look, the kind only a brother can give, then tossed a cooler full of beer and snacks into the bed and climbed in. It was unspoken, but clear. He knew I was drowning, and he wasn't going to let me do it alone. The drive to the vineyard was almost 5 hours. For the first hour, we barely spoke. I think he was giving me space, but eventually, the silence felt heavier than words. So I told him everything. I kept my voice steady, but inside, every detail I shared tore another piece of me apart. I told him about the truck in the driveway, the bedroom window, Lisa's laugh, her text, how I'd driven myself into the dark with a bottle of rum and rage. He listened the way only someone who's seen you at your best and worst can, with a steady hand and quiet presence. When I was done, he didn't offer empty comfort or tired cliches. He just said, "She played you, man. But you're still standing. That counts for something." We pulled into the bed and breakfast mid-afternoon. The owner, an older woman named Miriam, greeted us with a warm smile and not a flicker of judgment when we told her we were switching the honeymoon suite to a twin room. "Two brothers on a vineyard weekend," she said kindly. "Sounds better than most couples I see come through here." She even packed us a small cooler of food for our planned fishing trip the next day. Cheese, cold meats, some homemade cookies. I appreciated her subtle kindness more than I could say. That first night, Mark wanted to go out for dinner. I didn't. I needed solitude more than company, so he went without me, brought back a greasy burger and fries, and we ate side by side in silence while a muted baseball game flickered on the TV. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was grounding. The next morning, we hit the lake just after sunrise. The water was like glass, smooth and untouched. We didn't catch much, just a few undersized trout we had to throw back, but it didn't matter. There was something about the stillness of the water, the gentle sway of the boat, and the distant hum of birdsong that started to unclench the knot in my chest. By noon, we packed up the rods and spent the rest of the day driving through nearby vineyards and fruit stands, buying bottles of wine for Mark's wife and chatting with farmers about jams and peaches like we were regular tourists. It was surreal, how normal it felt. For a few brief hours, I wasn't the guy with a cheating wife and a broken heart. I was just a man on a road trip with his brother, trying to forget. That illusion broke when we got back to the room and I saw Lisa's name flash across my phone screen. I didn't answer. Instead, I handed the bottle of wine we'd been saving to Mark and told him I needed a minute. I sat on the porch outside the room and scrolled through our old photos, smiles from vacations, her head on my shoulder, us toasting on anniversaries. All eyes now. Memories felt like landmines. Every image carried the weight of betrayal. I opened the messages. She was being sweet, loving, talking about how excited she was to see me again, how this time apart was making her realize how much she missed me. I wanted to scream, because I knew where she had been that weekend. Jen, Mark's wife, had been doing a little recon of her own. While we were fishing, she'd driven by the house. She told me Lisa's affair partner was parked there Friday night and again Saturday morning. And Lisa? She wasn't even home. Jen followed her, straight to his apartment. She watched them hug, kiss, watched my wife walk out wearing clothes I had folded. Then, to twist the knife deeper, Lisa sent me a message telling me she loved me, while she was still there. I couldn't respond. Not yet. That night, I sat with Mark and Jen, sipping wine and eating leftover sandwiches, and I told them everything. Jen nodded slowly and told me she'd taken pictures. I didn't ask to see them. I wasn't sure I could stomach it. But her voice, steady, calm, free of drama, helped solidify what I already knew deep down. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a drunken one-night stand or a moment of weakness. This was a choice, made over and over again. Behind my back, in my home, Lisa had made her bed, and now she was sleeping in it, with someone else. I didn't want revenge. Not anymore. I didn't want to expose her, shame her, or even scream at her. What I wanted, what I needed, was clarity. A plan. A way forward that didn't leave me stuck in the ashes of what we once were. And for that, I knew I'd need help. Mark put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Talk to Cheryl. She helped Jen through some rough stuff. She's not going to fix this for you, but she'll help you make sense of it." I nodded. The next step wasn't going to be easy, but it was mine. Sunday morning came with an eerie calm. The air was cool and still, the kind of quiet that should bring peace. But for me, it just made everything louder inside. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours the night before. My thoughts kept chasing each other in circles, trying to find a corner to rest in and never succeeding. Jen brewed coffee while Mark and I sat on the porch. She handed me a cup, looked me in the eye, and said, "I have something to tell you." Her voice was soft, but steady. Too steady. I braced myself. She had spent the weekend quietly watching Lisa, following her, tracking her movements. Not because I asked her to, because she didn't want me going into this blind. "She spent Friday night with him," Jen said. "His truck was there all night. She left Saturday morning, but came back in the afternoon. I saw her walk into his place again. I stayed parked across the street, just waiting. She didn't leave until Sunday morning." My stomach sank. I felt the coffee turn bitter on my tongue. I asked, almost instinctively, "You're sure it was her?" Jen didn't blink. "I took pictures." She handed me her phone, but I didn't look. I couldn't. I wasn't sure I could even hold it without breaking down or throwing it into the yard. "She was texting you while she was there," Jen added. "Said she missed you. Said she loved you." And I saw them hugging, kissing. I stared at the floorboards beneath my feet. I had imagined betrayal before, suspected it, feared it. But this was confirmation. Not from assumptions, not from suspicion, but from eyes I trusted. Lisa had used my absence as an invitation, and she'd used my love as a shield while she did it. I didn't cry. I think I had passed the stage of tears. Now I was in the territory of something colder, something still and dangerous. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. Jen and Mark exchanged a look. Then Jen said, "I want you to meet someone." Her name was Cheryl, a friend of Jen's, a couples counselor, someone who had helped Jen through her own dark times in the past. She didn't know Lisa, had no connection to either of us. That's what made it feel safe. "She's coming for dinner tonight," Jen said gently. "You don't have to talk to her if you don't want to, but maybe just meet her." I nodded, not because I wanted to talk, but because I had no idea what else to do. That evening, we sat down for a quiet meal. Cheryl was warm, patient, unassuming. Nothing about her screamed therapist, which helped. After we ate, she suggested a walk with the dogs. Just to talk. No pressure. We walked slowly through Mark's neighborhood. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the sidewalks. I started with the basics: how long Lisa and I had been married, how we met, what we used to be like before everything got so complicated. And then, slowly, the rest came out. The cabin, the truck, the window, her laugh. Cheryl didn't interrupt. She just listened, nodding occasionally, letting me unravel the storm inside at my own pace. For the first time, I said things I hadn't even admitted to myself, like how I hated the version of me that existed right now. Angry, paranoid, heartbroken. How I didn't know if I wanted to fight for the marriage or burn it to the ground. When I paused, she finally spoke. "You're not broken, Brian. You're betrayed. And those are two very different things." I swallowed hard. She continued, "The longer you avoid talking to her, the harder it's going to be. The silence grows teeth. You don't need to decide what happens next. You just need to ask the questions you're afraid to ask." I nodded again. I wasn't sure I could face Lisa without falling apart or exploding. But Cheryl was right. I needed clarity. Not just for closure, but for sanity. If I stayed in the dark, I'd lose myself. Later that night, Mark pulled me aside and offered their guest room for as long as I needed. But I knew I couldn't stay in someone else's house forever. I needed space, but I also needed independence. I called my boss, explained the situation without diving into details. To my surprise, he told me he'd find a way to get me into one of the company's off-site apartments full-time, at least for a few months. It wasn't fancy, but it would be mine, and that felt like a start. Before I went to bed, I opened my phone again. Messages from Lisa. Dozens. All sweet. All casual. She still thought I was on a work trip. I stared at the blinking cursor, then typed, "Come home tomorrow. We need to talk. Be ready to be honest." No emojis. No warmth. Just the truth she'd been avoiding, and the confrontation I could no longer delay. I got home before she did. The house felt unfamiliar, like walking into someone else's life. The walls, the furniture, The smell of her perfume still hanging in the air. It all felt fake now. Artificial. Like a stage set carefully crafted to sell a lie I had already bought for too long. I didn't touch anything. I just sat at the dining table, phone face down, waiting. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't even pounding. It just felt tired, hollow, like it had been wrung out and left to dry. 15 minutes later, I heard the front door open. "Hey, babe," she called cheerfully. I didn't answer. She walked in, heels clicking on the hardwood, and when she saw me, her expression lit up. She came straight to me, arms wide, like everything was normal. Like she hadn't been in another man's bed just a day earlier. I stood up before she could hug me. She paused, smile faltering. "What's wrong?" she asked, blinking. I looked her in the eye. "We need to talk. And I need you to be honest." She laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. "Honest about what?" "You're scaring me." I didn't respond. I just stared. That's when her face started to shift, something subtle at first, then sharper. Panic. Her hands began fidgeting, smoothing her dress, tucking her hair behind her ear. She tried again. "Are you talking about yoga?" I tilted my head. "What about it?" She hesitated. I haven't really been going." "Then where have you been?" She faltered. "Just walking. I've been so stressed lately. I needed some air." "Why not just tell me that?" "I didn't want to add to your stress. You've been working so hard, and So you lied," I interrupted. She looked down. "I didn't mean to. It was easier than explaining everything." The silence that followed was heavy. She looked up again, eyes glassy. "Are you upset about the night I went out with friends?" "I came home late that night." I didn't answer. "I thought it might have bothered you." "I was just out for drinks." "Who were you with?" "My best friend." "Just her. Anyone else?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "No one. I drank alone most of the night." "You drink alone now?" She tried to smile. "Maybe I have a problem. We can talk about it later." I shook my head slowly. "Last chance, Lisa. Tell me the truth." Her face stiffened. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, she said, "I don't know what else to say." I walked to the hallway, picked up the overnight bag I'd packed, and returned with it in hand. Her eyes widened when she saw it. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. "I gave you a chance to be honest. You didn't take it." She lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. "Brian, wait. Please. I don't know what's going on. Just talk to me." I pulled away and turned to leave, but then she blurted, "Did you talk to Karen?" I froze. I hadn't. But the way she said it, panicked, desperate, told me everything. "Why?" I asked without turning around. "I don't want to do this over the phone," she said, voice cracking. We stood in the foyer, barely a foot apart, the weight of her secret suffocating the space between us. After a long pause, I said, "Then talk." She swallowed hard. "A few weeks ago, Karen and I went out. A couple guys started buying us drinks. We didn't ask them to. When we were leaving, one of them tried to kiss me. I pulled away, told him I was married." My jaw tightened. "And I didn't tell you because I felt guilty. Stupid guilty. Karen ended up hooking up with one of them. I guess she gave my number to the other guy without telling me. He's texted me since. I've never replied. Let me see your phone." She hesitated, then handed it over. Nothing. No messages from anyone but me and her mom. Her photo gallery was spotless. But I knew Lisa. She never deleted texts. Ever. I opened her deleted folder. There he was. A selfie of some guy I'd never seen before. "Who is this?" She looked away. "The guy who tried to kiss me." "Why did you take a picture of him?" "I don't know. I was being stupid." "That's not an answer." She didn't speak. I handed the phone back and stepped toward the door. "Brian, please," she whispered, following me. "Don't go. I told you the truth." I turned. "No, you told me a version of it. You're trickling it out, hoping I'll stop asking questions before the whole thing comes out." She opened her mouth again, and I raised a hand to stop her. "Whatever you're still hiding, I don't want to find out piece by piece. I'm not playing this game anymore." Then I left. She followed me out to the driveway, barefoot and crying, yelling my name. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I drove to the nearest park, parked under a tree, and sat on the tailgate. I ate a cold sandwich and stared into nothing. The worst part? Even after all of it, some part of me still missed her. I sat on the tailgate of my truck for nearly an hour, chewing on a sandwich I couldn't taste. The park around me was quiet, families playing in the distance, birds chirping like the world hadn't just cracked open under my feet. I felt like a ghost. like I was watching life from the outside, unable to reach it anymore. As I stared off into nothing, memories came flooding back, moments I had ignored, signs I had dismissed. The late nights, the hang-up calls from unknown numbers, the yoga sessions with no receipts, no soreness, no improvement in her flexibility. It was all there. I had just chosen not to see it, because I loved her, because I trusted her. I tossed the rest of my sandwich into the trash and climbed back into the truck. I wasn't sure what I was doing or where I was going, but I knew I couldn't sit in that parking lot any longer, letting the weight of her lies crush me in silence. I drove past our house, my house, but neither her car nor the truck was there. I went inside quickly, grabbed a few essentials, photo albums, old family heirlooms, documents I didn't want to lose. I packed up my toothbrush, some clothes, and maybe it was petty, my Xbox. Not because I needed it, but because it was mine. As I walked out, I paused in the doorway. I had built this life, brick by brick, and she had turned it into a stage for betrayal. I drove next to the guy's apartment. Her car wasn't there, but his truck was. My stomach turned. I didn't knock. I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. I needed more than a screaming match. I needed the truth. So I sent her a message. Where are you? She replied, at the grocery store. Why? I didn't believe her. Not anymore. I drove to the store she claimed to be at. And there she was, walking out with a bag of produce, phone in hand, texting probably me. I hated how much it relieved me that she was actually telling the truth. But I also hated that I'd become the kind of man who had to check. I went home and waited. 15 minutes later, she pulled into the driveway and walked in like everything was fine. She came over to hug me. I turned away. Brian, she said, her voice cracking. What's going on? You already know. She blinked. No. I don't. I gave you a chance to tell me the truth. You lied. Again. She started panicking, her words tumbling out, frantic. Are you talking about yoga again? Or that night I went out? I didn't do anything. I was just drinking, I swear. Maybe I have a problem, maybe I need help. I looked at her. Hello? Last chance. She stared at me, lips trembling. I don't know what else to say. Then I'm done. I turned, but she caught me by the arm. Wait, are you mad about Karen? That stopped me. I hadn't mentioned Karen. She started babbling. It was weeks ago. We went out. A couple of guys bought us drinks. Karen hooked up with one of them. One of them tried to kiss me, but I pulled away. I didn't do anything, I swear. You said he texted you. Yes, but I never replied. I asked to see her phone again. This time, she didn't hesitate. But her messages were wiped clean. Only me and her mom remained. She never deleted messages. I checked her deleted photos again. There he was. The same guy. Smirking in a blurry, late-night selfie. Why did you take a picture of him? She shrugged, eyes wide. I don't know. I was being stupid. That's not a reason. I stood up. Is that everything? She nodded. I turned away again. And that's when she snapped. I lied, she blurted out, voice shaking. We went back to his place. We fooled around. I froze. Just once, she whispered. We met again. We had sex. A few times. I turned to face her, but the room tilted. My vision blurred. My legs felt weak. I love you, she said, rushing toward me. I'll do anything, please. Let me fix this. I didn't answer. Brian, please. If it were you, if you were his wife, wouldn't you want to know? She nodded slowly. Yes. Then fix it. She swallowed hard. You want me to call her? Yes. Tears streamed down her face. She picked up her phone, dialed a number, and after a few rings, it went a voicemail. A minute later, her phone rang. The name flashed, Karen Work. But I knew it wasn't Karen. Is that him? I asked. She nodded, terrified. I answered. Sorry, wrong number, he said. No, you've got the right number, I said, coldly. This is the husband of the woman you've been sleeping with. She's got something to say to you. I passed the phone to her. She told him it was over. That she'd told me everything. That he should never contact her again. Then I asked for the phone. What divorce lawyer are you using? I asked him. I'm not getting divorced. But didn't you tell my wife you were? Silence. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said she told the truth. You should do the same. And I hung up. I turned to Lisa. Now call his wife. She did. And when she answered, everything changed. Her hands were shaking as she held the phone to her ear. I stood beside her, watching, listening, waiting. When the woman on the other end picked up, Lisa's voice cracked. Hi, is this Amanda? A long pause. Yes? Who's calling? Lisa's breath hitched. My name is Lisa. I have something terrible to tell you. Please don't drive. I don't want to cause an accident. Please, just pull over if you're in the car. Amanda's voice shifted instantly. What's going on? Did something happen to Michael? Lisa's eyes welled with tears. No, he's fine physically. But I need to be honest. Michael and we've been having an affair. For over a month. I'm coming clean to my husband right now. And I felt you deserved the same truth. Silence. It stretched into eternity. Then, finally, Amanda's voice came back, cold and sharp. If this is some kind of joke, I swear I'll find out who you are. And she hung up. 10 minutes later, Lisa's phone buzzed with a message from Karen Work. Thanks. You just ruined my life. I grabbed the phone from her hands and typed back. No, you ruined 4 lives. 2 marriages. Don't forget that. This is your doing. I tossed the phone onto the couch. For the next hour, Lisa fell apart. She was sobbing uncontrollably, mumbling things like, I don't deserve to live, and you should just kill me. She clung to me like I was the only thing keeping her from sinking into the floor, but I felt nothing. Just a cold, detached ache. She offered me everything: therapy, full transparency, access to her phone, passwords, even sex, like that would erase the truth. She begged me not to give up on us. She said we could still go on our trip, her treat. Let's leave everything behind for a few days, she said. Reconnect. Remember what we used to have. But I wasn't the same man who booked that trip. I told her I had already gone. She blinked, stunned. What? I went to the vineyard. With Mark. I canceled everything else. That bed and breakfast? That was mine. You weren't supposed to be there with anyone else. Her face turned white. I kept going. I already have therapy scheduled. I've already met with a lawyer. I've already packed my things. I've already moved out. She collapsed to the floor, wailing. The sound didn't even register. It was distant, muffled, like I was hearing it through a wall. I stood there, arms at my sides, watching her unravel. For the next 4 hours, she cycled through every phase: denial, bargaining, rage, desperation. One moment she'd beg me to hold her. The next she'd curse herself. The next she'd offer to do anything if I'd just stay. I didn't say much. Eventually, I called Karen, not that Karen, a real one, and asked her to come over and keep an eye on Lisa. She's not in a good place, I said simply. Someone needs to be here. Then I walked out the door. I didn't look back. That night, I stayed at Mark's place again. Jen made dinner, and the 3 of us sat around the table like old times. They didn't push, didn't ask questions, just let me exist in the space I needed. When I went to bed, I didn't sleep much, but for the first time, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. The next day, Lisa started calling and texting, over and over, nonstop. So did her friends, her family, all of them with different excuses, different reasons why I should talk to her, forgive her, understand her. Some begged, some scolded, some blamed me, except her father. He sent me a single message. Do what's best for you. I'll always love you like a son. That one broke me. It was the first time since everything happened that I truly cried. Not from anger, not from betrayal, just sorrow for everything lost, everything broken, everything that would never be again. The next day, I met with Cheryl again. Then my lawyer. I didn't feel strong, but I felt clear. This wasn't rage anymore. It wasn't even pain. It was decision. I had spent 2 decades building a life with a woman who tore it apart in 30 days. I could forgive her. I could even still love her in some twisted, tragic way. But I couldn't stay with her. Because love doesn't survive in lies. And I wasn't going to live inside a grave she dug with a smile. The days that followed felt like walking through fog. Every step forward felt heavy, uncertain. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel anymore. Anger had faded into numbness. The heartbreak hadn't disappeared, but it had settled into something quieter, deeper, like a scar that was still healing, but no longer bleeding. I stayed with Mark and Jen most nights, only returning to my company apartment when I needed space. I tried not to be a burden, but they never made me feel like one. My boss gave me time off, personal leave. I didn't ask for it. He just told me, take what you need. For that, I'll always be grateful. Cheryl and I met 3 more times. Our sessions weren't breakthroughs, but they helped untangle the knots in my head. Sometimes just speaking the pain out loud made it feel less suffocating. Sometimes I'd sit in silence, and she'd let me. She didn't rush my healing. That meant more than words could ever express. I started writing things down. Not for anyone else, just for me. Pages of thoughts, memories, confessions. I wasn't trying to make sense of what happened. I was trying to make sense of who I was now without her. Then came the weekend. Jen planned a family gathering at the cabin, something lighthearted to remind me I still had people around me who cared. I agreed. I figured it was time. Time to stop hiding, to stop grieving behind closed doors. For a while, it actually worked. We grilled burgers, played cards, shared stories. I sat around the fire with Mark and my dad, nursing a beer, feeling, if only for a moment, normal. Then headlights cut through the trees. I turned. It was Lisa's car. Mark stood up immediately. "I've got this." She wasn't alone. Two of her friends climbed out, shouting at him to mind his own business, demanding to see me. He held the line, but there were too many of them. She shoved past him, tears already pouring down her face. "Brian," she screamed, stumbling toward the fire. I stood up, my father stepping beside me. "I'll handle it," I said quietly. She ran to me, wrapping her arms around me before I could react. I didn't hug her back. I just stood there, letting her sob into my shoulder like she hadn't wrecked everything. "Please talk to me," she begged. So we walked around the property trails, just the two of us. Her eyes were red, her face hollow. "He's gone," she said. "His wife left him. He called me, screaming, threatening to kill himself. I told him to do it." I blinked, unsure of what to say. "I haven't spoken to him since. I blocked his number. I swear," she continued, frantic. Then she pulled a folded sheet of paper from her jacket. Notes she'd written. A list of promises. Counseling. Honesty. Full access to everything. Even quitting her job, if that's what it took. I didn't say a word. She looked at me, eyes wide and pleading. "Let's start over. Quit our jobs. Move overseas. Start that beach bar we used to dream about." That hit me like a brick. Because she had no idea, that's exactly what I'd been thinking too. In the silence of those nights alone, I had fantasized about starting over. Far away. A new life on warm sand, with no past and no pain. I'd imagined the waves washing away everything she'd done. Hearing her say it made my chest tighten. It was the last thing I expected to come from her mouth. And for a split second, I almost said yes. But then reality came crashing back. It wasn't just a fantasy. Not anymore. Not after what she did. She didn't get to hit the reset button. Not with me. Not after everything she destroyed. I exhaled slowly and looked away. "I can't." She collapsed again, sobbing, clutching my arm. "I'll talk," I said, gently pulling away. "But I'm not making promises." That calmed her enough to leave. Since then, we've spoken on the phone every night. Every time, it's the same. She cries. She begs. I get angry. And then I hang up. Sometimes I miss her so much it feels like my chest is caving in. She was my best friend for 20 years. The person I shared dreams with, laughed with, slept beside. Now she's just the echo of what could have been. I still want to run, start over, burn everything down and build something new. But not with her. She robbed me of the life we were supposed to have. She took our future and threw it away for something meaningless. And now I'm left to pick up the pieces alone. But maybe that's the only way forward. Not by fixing what's broken, but by building something new from the ground up. Without her, looking back, I realized this experience taught me more than just the painful truth about betrayal. It revealed the kind of man I truly am and the kind of man I want to continue being. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that trust is sacred. When it's broken, you don't just lose faith in someone, you lose a piece of yourself. But even in heartbreak, there's a chance to rebuild. For anyone listening, especially those who've lived long enough to know how fragile time is, don't ignore your instincts. Don't minimize the quiet signs your heart is trying to show you. Protect your peace, even if it means walking away from someone you love. You're never too old to start over, never too far gone to reclaim your dignity. Don't beg for love, don't chase apologies, and never settle for half-truths. What matters most isn't who hurt you. It's what you choose to do afterward. Me? I'm choosing to live with clarity, with purpose, and with the hope that the next chapter, whoever it's with, is one I write with open eyes and an honest heart.